Hello, everyone. This
Hi,
is
everyone.
Margaret.
I'm Andrew.
Welcome, everybody, to our Deep Learning Design Patterns Study Jams. And I would like to welcome you to the GDG Seattle meetup. It's been a while since we've had Tech Talk, and now we have moved our event online. I'm very happy you all can join us, and welcome. So, GDG Seattle, how many of you are new? Please type in the comments if you are new to GDG Seattle event. So GDG Seattle, we are an inclusive community where everyone is welcome. And our motto is be excellent to each other. If you see or experience anything different, please contact us organizers. I'm one of the organizers, and we have other organizers as well. So today, what are we going to talk about? First, we're going to have a brief introduction of Andy and I, and we'll talk about why we're running these study jams, who should participate and why. And Andy will go over the study jam series and key takeaways for each session. And I will wrap it up with how we study and next steps. So today is more of an overview session, and we will have plenty of time for you all to ask questions. And since we cannot like interact live, you'll just type your questions on YouTube live, and I'll read out the questions. Andy and I can answer the questions. And during today's session, you can feel free to tweet with the hashtags below. I have included Andy and my Twitter handles, as well as GDG Seattle and a couple of other hashtags below. So here to you, Andy.
Hey, I'm Andrew Ferlitsch. For those who don't know me, I'm part of Google Cloud AI. I belong to developer relations, and that means I'm primarily external facing. So if you were familiar with me, you've seen me like at conferences. I also appear at universities doing lectures as an adjunct professor. I do a lot of meetups, just like this meetup. I do a lot of training and workshops, and I also work with Google's enterprise clients as an AI architect. My expertise is in computer vision and deep learning. I was formerly a principal research scientist for 20 years. Imaging, that's the connection to computer vision and deep learning. And on my prior work, I have 115 US issued patents based on my research. I'm also writing a book on deep learning to be published by Manning. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So I am going to be one of the other instructors for the study jam sessions. I'm a machine learning GDE. I lead GDG Seattle as well as Seattle Data Analytics Machine Learning, another meetup. I'm working on AI for art and design, and I contribute to TensorFlow. I have also taught Android at University of Washington continuing education a few years ago. So why run study jams? Some of you, for those of you who have been a member of GDG Seattle, you probably have remembered that the study jams we ran before on Android, on cloud, machine learning, Firebase, actions on Google, etc., etc. And this time, we've decided to run our study jam based on Andy's upcoming book called Deep Learning Design Patterns. And the materials catered more towards job roles instead of academia. And aside from the reading materials, Andy has also created hands-on workshops and collabs And all of these materials are available on GitHub. He has also recorded for each of these sections. He recorded the talks on YouTube. And we have scheduled these study jam sessions with live Q&As where Andy will come here and help answer any questions during your study. So what are your backgrounds? So who should be attending? I would say you are either a data scientist or machine learning engineer or software engineer, or you should already have some basic knowledge of Python and programming and have some basic knowledge of machine learning. And
all right. Well, here, I'll just take over for a moment, Margaret. So why you should attend. So our deep learning study jam series is really here to build a foundation for developing deep learning skills as a profession. As Margaret emphasized, this isn't an academic thing. We want to teach you how to use it at work, okay? We also, another good reason to attend is it's accelerated learning. Both Margaret and our education style is broadly recognized by people as being easy to learn. And we're going to help you understand what's under the covers without the statistics. Okay. You can, today lots of people do deep learning at work. We generally call them machine learning engineers, and they don't need to know any of the math. They need to know the tools, the frameworks, the why, the what, and the how. And that's what we're going to teach you. Next slide, Margaret. Okay, so in our study jam series, the first session is this one right here, the overview, where we're just going to talk about how these study jams will work. And then the other ones are broken into really two sections, the primer and then what I call the junior data scientist one. And the primer is for those people who don't yet have that strong of a foundation yet in machine learning. They know a little bit. You've done a Udemy course or Udacity, or you've read blogs and online tutorials and dabbled with it. But you know that there's gaps, okay? So our primer session 2, our main job is to fill in those gaps, to get you ready to do the accelerated learning that's more specific to the work. So we'll be covering things like deep and convolutional neural networks, the foundations of training and data engineering. Then 3, 4, 5, we call the Junior Data Scientist series, okay? And this is really geared towards work, okay? And so we're gonna go start off by talking about design patterns that are used in CNN. Today we use design patterns, okay? And we'll also cover things like going wide or deep in convolutional networks, alternative connectivity patterns, and mobile convolutional networks. Session 4, we'll be talking about autoencoders, hyperparameter tuning that includes manual as well as automatic, and transfer learning. And then we'll wrap it up with really the full training pipeline, end-to-end training in a production environment, and data augmentation, the different ways of doing data augmentation to improve the performance of your models. So next slide, Margaret. So what are the takeaways? So at the end of session 2, the one we refer to as the primer, you'll know how to you'll know how a deep neural network and a convolutional neural network works, and you're going to be able to code them in TensorFlow Keras. We're going to show you how to use the Keras functional API to code models. And you're going to know the design principles behind cov nets like a VGG and residual nets like a ResNet, and be able to code them using TensorFlow Keras. And you're going to know how to prepare image data for training and the fundamentals of training CNN models. In session 3, you're going to be able to, we're going to really, take a leap forward, but at the end of it, you're going to be able to quickly and accurately code large and mobile state-of-the-art models from research papers. We're going to show you how to take those architectural designs, map them back into the design pattern, and then based on the design pattern, quickly code them. And you're going to know the differences and the advantages of going deeper in layers or wider in layers and using other connectivity patterns in the state-of-the-art models. And you're going to know how to use TF Lite for deploying mobile models. So next slide, Margaret. Oh, one too many. There we go. So in session 4, you're going to understand the purpose of and be able to quickly code autoencoders and do them for things like compression, denoising, super resolution, and unsupervised pre-training. The latter is used to actually pre-train your models so that they can better train when you actually use them on the data set for supervised learning. And you're going to have good judgment in first the manual selection of hyperparameters and being able to construct your own learning rate schedulers. And then we're going to have you understand what happens under the covers for automatic tuning, because to really use automatic tuning right, you got to know what's happening underneath. And we're going to explain that to you, get you to understand it. And we're going to show you how to use Keras Tuner for automatic hyperparameter tuning. And you're going to know how to do both fine tuning for transfer learning. That's when the tasks are similar, and how to do incremental tuning when you have dissimilar tasks. So next slide, Margaret. And then finally, in session 5, we're really pulling it all together. You're ready now to start do deep learning at your job. You'll be training pre-built, your own built for image classification, and you'll be using both full training and transfer learning. And you're going to be able to know how to increase the performance accuracy of your models using data augmentation techniques. So back to you, Margaret.
Great. Thank you, Andy. So I'm going to talk about how you would study. Actually, before I talk about how you study, I just want to mention, like, we have scheduled 5 sessions of these Q&A sessions, but I don't think that covers the whole book Andy has, right, Andy? Probably no, the primer and the maybe first few chapters.
Yeah, well, the primer is already being given away free as a promotional item by Manning. And then the book has 3 major sections in it, all geared towards job roles. So the first section is the junior data scientist. Then the next one is the intermediate mid-level data scientist. And then the final one is the senior data scientist.
Okay. So remind me again, the 5 sessions will cover up until the junior data scientist?
Yeah, the end of the junior data scientist.
Okay, got it. All right, so how do you study? And you will study by watching the videos. I have included a link here for you. And then after each of our study jam session, I will also assign the homework. We'll also assign you the homework to do for the next 2 weeks before we meet again. So you watch the videos that Andy has recorded, and you will do the exercises. And the exercises are in Colab format. And then you'll prepare any kind of questions that you have, and you will come to our study gym sessions for live Q&A. So for example, so today is May 7th. In 2 weeks, on May 21st, which is our session 2, and we will expect you to watch the video, which is like 45-minute talk, and then you will do the workshop, which is 15-minute workshop. And then here's also that's on deep neural networks, right? And then you'll watch another video on convolutional and residual networks, and then you'll do the workshop. And then the same thing for the video for the training foundation. You watch the video and then you do the workshop. So you have 2 weeks to do these watching the video and then practice the workshop. And then you'll prepare a list of your questions. And then the next session on May 27th, Andy and I will come to the YouTube live stream again. And then you will have all your questions. And then we will just do Q&A this way. So I think that is the end of our talk or overview today, right, Andy? And we're opening it up for your questions now.
Yeah, you might just ask you one thing to help them out. if between now and the 21st they get stuck on some of these materials, what's your suggestion they should do?
Well, my suggestion is that they just accumulate their questions and then come to the next session. Well, on the other hand, you might want to be able to help each other out. So my question for everybody is, would you rather have a forum so that you can talk to each other and help each other out? Or are you okay just, have your questions and then come to the Q&A session and wait? So, okay, I am going to read out some of the questions now. And someone said, please share the link for the materials. Yes. So what I'm going to do is after today's this overview session, this session is already recorded on YouTube, auto posted, and I am going to post this particular slide with all the links so you have access to it. And then somebody said, where can we get the links to the slides? And with all the video workshop. Yes, we will share that. And one question for other folks who have done the study jam type format before, do you have any tips on how to get the most out of it? So in the past, for those of you who are GDG Seattle members, typically our study jams are conducted like this. Like, for example, we will come together. We have just one session. I remember when I did the Android one, I did 4 sessions, every other week. But typically other ones is like a full day. We come together. There was some sort of talks, and then we'll do some hands-on exercise. For cloud, we had quick labs where, kind of guided you through. And for this one, we are using a slightly different kind of format in that the talks are recorded, like you can watch them on your own time. And then the exercises, you can do them on your own time as well. But we come together every 2 weeks to really help each other out. And then let's see. If we have questions outside of time for the videos, do we reach out to you? And then somebody else says Slack. Okay, yes. So this back to my question earlier is like, do you all prefer to interact with each other as well, aside from coming to the sessions and, have the live Q&A, have, Andy and I help answer your questions? Or do you prefer to also interact with each other with your questions? If so, I can share like a Slack channel for everybody to interact with each other. Although Andy and I probably may not have the bandwidth to go, answer all your questions, but you all can help each other out. And Andy and I can help answer your questions every other 2 weeks during these study gym sessions. And another question is, would we also have access to Andy's primer from Manning? Yes, the primer is actually posted on Andy's GitHub.
Yeah, I may not have put a direct link to it on the slide deck, but I'll add it before you post it.
Okay, sounds good. So you can have access to that. And I think there is a GDG Slack. We could make a channel, but I don't see. I already have a machine learning study jam Slack before, so I can share with everybody. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to jump in. I think it's really a good idea, for people to get onto Slack and just kind of do some immersive learning where you're kind of learning from each other.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a community, and that's the whole point of a study jam is you study together and you help each other out, even though it's virtually. We don't see each other in person like what we did before for our study jams, but we can still study together. Any other questions? I think I'm going to just wait a few more minutes before we end our broadcast. And again, I will share this overview slide deck and also all the links with you, including Slack channel. For folks less than Andy or Margaret level, how long do the exercise usually take? That is a very good question. So you see how on this slide I said 45-minute talk and 15-minute workshops. We say 15 minutes. Andy, what do you think if somebody who's really beginner, novice, just started? Again, we expect you to have some idea because this is not a beginner thing like you have no clue about Python or but I think Andy, your first talk on deep neural network, it is pretty basic, right? Andy, if you're still talking, you're being muted. Could you unmute?
There, thank you.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, if you could repeat what you just said.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience doing workshops. And, so these are highly tailored for you to be successful at them. Okay. And generally the minutes I put down there, most people can finish them in that amount of time. Okay. The main thing is I have them all built to automatically launch in Colab. So you don't have to worry about installs and setups and the right software and that. That usually is what eats up a lot of the time. And then, the notebooks, but you do need to know how to run a Jupyter notebook. It'll automatically run in Colab. If you haven't done that before, just go online, read a little bit about it. It's pretty straightforward. But it's a collection of cells. Some of them have text in them. Some of them have bits of code. You're going to read the text in each cell that tells you what to do in the next cell, which has some bit of code. So back to you, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And for those of you who are new to Colab, I have some Colab tutorials as well, so I can, help you out to learn. And somebody else is asking a question. This would be shared through what medium? So I'm not sure what your question means by this, but let me just reiterate how we're sharing all of this. Okay. So today's slides, I usually put my slides on either SlideShare or Speaker Deck. So then I will give a link to you. In terms of all the study materials, Andy has a GitHub that includes the link, put all the workshop material and reading material together. Like the primer, I think it's on your GitHub. So there's a lot of material for you to read. It's on Andy's GitHub. And then the videos are posted on YouTube. And so yeah, just YouTube and GitHub. Yeah, those two are the main places. And then each time we meet, if we have any kind of slides, I will post it on Speaker Deck or SlideShare. And I have my own tutorials as well. I write my tutorials on Medium. Okay. Andy...
Oh, I was just going to throw in, because I just added it to the slide deck. So those who wanted the link to the primer, it'll be on the slide that says, how do we study?
Yeah. So when Andy's book is coming out, I would like to buy it. Andy, when's your book coming out?
Well, it comes out in two phases. First, they have an electronic early release where I have about a third to half of the book. That should be coming out in June. And then the final book, it is quite an extensive collection, will be coming out in August.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Yeah, the publisher is saying it's to them it's the most ambitious publication of deep learning ever done. So there's an actual whole editorial team working on it behind the scenes.
Okay. So someone else is asking the question, were links to data sets included and shared in the pre-study sessions? I think everything is together, right? If you give the Colab exercise, people don't have to go hunt down.
No, things built in.
Yeah.
It's all built in. There's anything that would cause friction has been removed. Yeah.
This is excellent. I think I have seen Andy's workshop Colab before. It is excellent. I like how you build your exercise. You basically have these Colab where you would have some blank places just for people to say, this is what I expect you to do. And then do you have also like a solution?
Well, when I do it, where there's an exercise, think of it, there's a code snippet. Okay. But instead of it being complete, I've left out a parts and put in some question marks and you need to figure out what to put in the question marks. But in the cell above, I kind of explain the challenge to you. And then where the question marks are, I usually put a big hint in as a comment.
Okay, but what if people are really, really stuck when they do exercise? Do you have like a separate version? Say, here's the solution. Don't peek at it.
At this moment, I don't. But
Okay.
encourage with the Slack panel. Get on the if we put up a Slack panel.
But you give enough hints, so hopefully people will get through. Okay. All right. Okay. Great. And let's see.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people, make a mistake or two, but they relook at the hint and a little bit of trial error, suddenly the light bulb goes off and go, oh
yeah. Okay. Okay, so somebody said that this would be shared through what medium? I was sent this link by a friend. I want to make sure I'm signed up properly to receive communication. Okay, got it. So we are GDG Seattle. I will post the link to GDG Seattle. However, I think, Andy, we're pretty open to outside, right? So I think I'm okay just posting the links. The reason why I actually locked down the membership of GDG Seattle recently, for those of you who have noticed that when you join, it needs approval. The reason I had to lock it down is because there has been some attacks. So I had to lock it down. Just when new people were joining, people have to go through an approval process to join as a member. However, in terms of this study jam, Andy and I are very open. We'll open it up to anybody, right? Okay, so I will make sure you receive the communication. Okay, somebody said, Reza said that you mentioned TF-Lite. Are we going to look at deploying something on simulated devices, low power devices, or is that beyond the scope of the sessions? Okay, so I will answer this question. When you look at the whole machine learning data pipeline, just imagine the phases. I will say the first one is probably your data loading and pre-processing, and the middle one would be like your neural network architecture, defining and training and evaluation. And the third phase is more of a productionize and deployment, et cetera, et cetera. And in my opinion, I think in this deep learning design patterns, Andy, you're going to cover some of the data loading and pre-processing, and you're heavily focused on the deep learning neural network architecture and the training. And you will mention some deployment. Is that right? Assumption?
I go a little bit, I mean, certainly for large models, in the sections on training and later on the production pipeline, we definitely go into deployment into the cloud, virtual cloud, but it's analogous with your laptop. Okay. On the mobile devices, you're running in Colab, and in essence, that virtual instance behind it is acting as a proxy for your mobile for a mobile device. And yeah, we'll go ahead and actually show you in code how to deploy an instance with the TF-Lite interpreter and prepare like an image for a prediction and send it to it and get a prediction.
I see. So in another way, you're going to show the TF-Lite inference, but running in Python code in Colab. You're not really showing TF-Lite, say, running on Android, right? Okay, good. So thank you for the clarification. I am going to add something to this. Again, like I said, this study gym session is based on Andy's book. I would say it's deep learning design patterns. We're really, really focused on the neural network architecture design patterns, right? Even though we will mention the data part and deployment part. However, for me, my area of expertise is actually on-device machine learning. I'm running a project, leading a project, working with other machine learning GDEs. We are actually preparing a lot of training material for deployment. And when I say deployment, model deployment, we are talking about deploying model cloud and web and mobile and embedded. So, but that's a separate project. Hopefully, one day we're going to have study gyms focusing more on deployment, right? Okay, so I have answered the question on TF-Lite, and then there's another question from Brian. I got this link from a friend. Will you post the slide, share, and get links, etc.? Some other place. Sure. So here is also the thing. If you look on the slides, you will see Andy's Twitter handle, and you will see my Twitter handle. So you should follow both of us. And for me, I probably will handle a lot of the the communication, etc. And then Andy and I both will answer questions. All right. So will you also discuss the best practice of a production code for TensorFlow? When you say production code, could you clarify what production code means? Are you talking about deployment?
I think, though, I can still answer that in general. Everything we show you is with TensorFlow Keras, TensorFlow 2x. And yeah, we use the best practices in whatever we're showing to you, whether it's, just building the model, whether it's training the model, or whether it's deploying the model.
Oh, best practices in general. Yes, definitely best practices in general. And I think as you saw earlier when Andy was going over the key takeaways for each session, you see there's a lot of materials being covered. So we're definitely not just talking about a hello world deep learning with MNIST or fashion MNIST, right? There are lots of topics being covered, and also Andy will be talking about a lot of the best practices.
Yeah, and part of my role at Google is, I'm interacting with some of Google's largest clients. They call them enterprise clients. That means they have like $1 billion or more a year revenue. And those are really high-end machine learning teams, and they're doing massive things on a massive amount of scale. So yeah, everything is about what's the best practice to do something. And so even the whole book is kind of, when you got on teams like that, you got the whole sort of line of roles. You got the junior data scientist, you got your intermediate middle data scientists, and you got your senior ones. And so the whole book is sort of based on my experience working on the big scale production clients about what people do at those specific roles.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I think there's another question. How many questions do we take before we end? I kind of want to set the expectation on the timing, because people can ask the question next time, or maybe ask the question in the Slack chat. Like I said, I think even though Andy and I are really busy, we won't be able to answer all the questions. But since we're just getting started, I'm happy to answer some questions, in terms of the logistics and where to find things, etc. To make sure you're on your way to actually being able to study. Someone said issues encountered in running TensorFlow may be captured in the video format to facilitate consulting. Is there a public place to share it? So you are one. Well, if you want to share, I will share with everybody the Slack channel, and you all can feel free to share with each other. Again, I will not use this. I will use the Slack channel as a knowledge sharing place, not a marketing channel. Like, please don't try to go there to sell your stuff, but you are encouraged to help each other out and learn with each other and from each other. All right, so I'm going to wait for 1 minute and take one more question before we end the broadcast. And I think this has been a really good session, right, Andy?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, let me see how many people joined. Yeah, we have 38 people, and at one point we got 40 people joining us, so it's great.
We were all getting used to doing things virtual. I used to do everything in person, but for the last 2 months, just like all the rest of you, I've had to transition to how do I do this same role now, but in a virtual manner.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there are no questions, and I am going to end the broadcast now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We will talk to you in 2 weeks on May 21st. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, bye.